Hey guys, Weeb here. Welcome back to another video by Variety MMOs. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Ranger class guide for pso2 New Genesis. So the Ranger is a bit like the Gunner, except that it uses rifle full time and uses a launcher. It uses much more long range than the Gunner, and I think that it's as easy or maybe even easier to use than the Gunner class. So if you have a high ping or if you're generally new to the game, this class is a-okay for you. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the skills on the Gunner, talk about why they're good and why you may not use some of them. We're going to be talking about a couple of classes that you can combo with them and why. And then we're going to have a look at the abilities of both the rifle and the cannon. And then we'll talk about kind of situations in which you would use each weapon. So let's go and have a look at some of the abilities. So let's go up to the class counter and open up your class tree. So here is the Ranger. So the Ranger's bread and butter ability would be Blight Rounds. What Blight Rounds does is when you target an enemy, you put a marker on it for your entire team. And what this does is it boosts the damage if somebody attacks that weak point. So it's very crucial that you find the weak point on the boss, be it its head, its back, or tail, wherever it is. Put this marker on it, and it'll tell your entire team, hit this marker, do more damage. Blight Rounds reinforce, it basically makes it stronger and it makes it last longer if it's hit a total of 100 times. This is really good if you have a decent sized team or somebody with a gunner because they hit so many times so frequently. Now, little note, Blight Rounds, you can put a couple less points into it to increase the cooldown. However, in a majority of situations, you get knocked down, you're too far away from the boss, you're not targeting the right location. So I would just strongly recommend just putting in max points to simply make it easier rather than min-max that 1-2 seconds of cooldown. So here we have bad condition ward and bad condition reduction. So what I've personally done is I've put all my points into bad condition ward and 1 point into bad condition reduction. The reason I do this is because I don't want to get hit by resistances. I would rather not get hit than to reduce it. So I put 5 points into bad conditions, so there's only a 61% chance I'll get hit with a status element. Now, if I do get hit, I spend 1 point to reduce that by a whopping 50%, which is a very, very strong 1 point, considering you only get an extra 4% after these points. Slow landing and slow landing charge ranger basically allows you to jump up in the air and attack and move around in midair. 10-10 mobility would never play a range class without these. Spread shot, so basically it's a bit like your ultimate. You shoot with your rifle, and as you're shooting, it'll charge up a bar. And when you use this ability, it'll activate like a shotgun and do a lot of damage right in front of you. Cannot be used all the time and has to use the rifle to charge it. So it's unfortunate if you're a fan of the cannon because this ability just won't work. While I don't really like spread shot very much, I figure that it's better to put points into spread shot and to get an extra invulnerability than it would be to potentially put 2 more points into your status ailment stats. So spread shot, quick getaway, this is invulnerability I was talking about. So when you use spread shot, you'll get an invulnerability period. So even if you don't do a lot of damage, if a boss is going to do a big swiping attack, or you know you're going to die, use your ability and you'll become invincible temporarily while using the ability so you can dodge big boss mechanics. Up here we have Rifle Grenader. So you press and hold the action button to perform a grenade attack. So I will show this a little bit later, but basically what it does is if you hold the button down, it plants a grenade in the ground, and if the enemy walks over it, they'll explode. Now, if you click a directional button, so for example, if you jump forward and click it, it'll shoot it forward. So you can basically shoot it as a group of mobs and make it explode like a grenade. So here we have Slide Shot Advance. Basically what this does is your weapon action, you jump around a lot. And mid-jump, you're actually going to become invulnerable. And you can do this all the time and charge your PP at the same time. This ability, quite frankly, is overpowered. It really is. And I cannot strongly recommend this ability anymore. Here we have Sticky Bomb Quick Reload. So this basically allows you to use your weapon actions for your launches faster. Now, this is most important for one particular ability in which you rain a hail of fire on your enemies with your rocket launcher. It allows you to spam and use your PP instantly. Here we have lock, launcher, charge, group. Inputting a direction command will improve the accuracy fire when performing a normal attack when charged. So you left click on your mouse when you're just auto firing like every other class. If you hold it, it'll charge up. Now, if you charge it up and click forward, again, I will show you this. It'll actually improve the accuracy of your fire, so it hits one enemy rather than 5 enemy, and it's better for single target attacks. I will show all of these a little bit later in the video if it didn't make any sense. Now, the recommendations that I would make to go along with the Ranger would be the Gunner. Now, the reason I like the Gunner is because you can restore PP when you're not attacking bosses. Now, as you can see, you can get an extra 20% when attacking AoE mobs. This could go really good with the cannon, with the beam attack, which I will show you later. Or I would go PP recovery. So this just gives you default more PP recovery on just about anything you're doing. So these two combined as a subclass will give you much higher PP regeneration. Now, obviously, this is when I was playing this class as a main. If I wasn't playing this class as a main, I would take all the points out of everywhere else, and I will put them solely into these two abilities here. So as a subclass, you should only be using these two abilities as your maximum PP regeneration. This can work on most classes, and it's especially good for the Ranger. Next up, you can use the Fighter. Again, this is the passive skills for the Fighter. It basically does increase damage and increases PP when attacking down enemies. For example, you could use the Launcher and put your Rain of Fire on them, or you can use your Beam attack and do a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. Next up, you have your Hunter. So your Hunter can obviously use your defensive abilities, and you can take less damage by default. So basically, Hunter is defense, Fighter will allow you to do more damage when they're knocked down, and Gunner will allow you to get more PP in general when you're using these two as the passive skills. Okay, so now that we've looked at those skills, let's go and have a look at the abilities so they make a little bit more sense. Before we go in there though, let's show you some basic abilities. So here you have your general fire, which you can basically just use to auto fire, and this will regenerate your PP or mana. Next up, you have your right click, which you can just kind of like triple fire and do some damage like this if you choose, or you can hold it in when you get a bit of PP, and it'll do this. That can actually hit multiple enemies and will pierce, so if you group them together, it's actually quite effective. So next up, we have our weapon action. Remember how we talked about the weapon action, how it gives you an invulnerability? You can basically keep doing this over and over again. Now, you might remember something I talked about with the grenade. So this is what that meant. So if you hold in your middle button, it'll plant a grenade where you are. If I click the directional button, like if I click frontways, sideways, like this, it would have shot the grenade at him. But now if I make him come inside this grenade here, it'll actually hit him. So you keep auto-firing, followed up by left clicks, right clicks, and basically doing some AoE damage. So next up, we have... I need some PP. So as you saw there, if you hold in the button, you actually lock onto everything and then let go, and it fires and hits everything. You can do this on massive amounts of targets, which is actually a pretty cool ability in my opinion. Unfortunately, it uses a lot of PP, so I like using the Gunner class to compensate for the PP lack thereof on this class. So next up we have here, let's try this ability when he's up in the air. So as you can see, it allows me to jump and shoot at him. So if you use this in conjunction with your middle mouse button, which is your weapon action, which actually takes no PP and regenerates PP. So you can effectively keep jumping around with your weapon action like this and get PP back at the same time. It's actually incredibly efficient. So PP regeneration, invulnerability, damage, and the ability to move. And then you can keep doing this for your bigger dashes. If you hold in your button, you will slide around as you just saw. Unfortunately, I got hit. So let's have a look at that again. Restore your PP up. Hold the button. And you are supposed to slide. Okay. Let's try that one last time. Okay, there we go. So that's how you slide around and do the damage with the machine gun. So I actually think that this is the general way to go with this class. So while you're doing all these abilities, I mentioned before you had your Blight round. So this is that's your save up ability. So that's your spread shot. You want to use that when you're close. Next up, you're going to want to use your 3 key. And unfortunately, I just died. So you got to be careful when doing this. Okay, so let's get back up. So next we're going to use blight rounds. See how it has a target on him now? So if you attack that target, it's actually going to do more damage. And your allies can see that target too. Let's use it on the wolf, for example. There we go. So if 100 hits get done on that target, it'll actually power up. So you're going to combine blight rounds with your auto attacks and right clicks to damage your enemies. Now, another nifty little thing with this character is you can do this. So a lot of times you're going to be up in the air. Kind of like this, as I told you before, I'd recommend doing it. So if you're up in the air, you can actually do this. A good way of dodging boss abilities. Jump up in the air, click fire, boom. You can actually do damage to enemies, and you can reduce the chance of getting hit by enemies who are up in the air and doing big AoE attacks. Okay, so the launcher, in my opinion, is a little bit more focused for AoE mobs. So let's put the launcher on and go and have a look at some smaller mobs. Okay, so the launcher acts quite a bit differently than the rifle does. As I mentioned, the rifle is really good in damage, but personally I believe that the launcher is much fun, and I will show you why. So before I talked about auto-attacking and clicking auto-attack at the same time. So you're holding your auto-attack, you charge up, and then jump forward and you let it go. And that'll happen. Now, if I didn't do that, this is what happens. It just fires 5 bullets straight out. That's not accurate at all. But if you jump forward and do it, very accurate, and it'll actually do a lot of damage. You want to do this when you're looking at a single target. Now, if you want to auto-attack, there is a bit of a long cast timer for this, but the good thing is that you could do this. So if you keep targeting mobs, you can basically keep moving like the gunner, so it's actually really good for maneuverability when you're using your auto attacks, which is really thankful because some of the abilities are a bit slow. Okay, so next up, let's target a mob. Now, if you hit right click and you keep spamming it, it'll allow you to drop bullets on their head, I suppose. Not exactly sure what they're called, but basically it's a bit like cannon fire, and you can drop it on their head. Now, you remember that there was an ability I talked about earlier that allows you to use abilities faster. It especially comes into account when you're doing this, because if you don't have that, you won't be able to do this, for example. You won't be able to spam so many abilities so quickly. Now, especially if a boss is down and you're using, say, a fighter class, because as with other guides, a fighter is really good at knockdown damage. So you'd knock him down and then just basically keep clicking like that on his head and do a tremendous amount of damage. Okay, so next up, let's have a look at the weapon action. So the weapon action, you'll notice, actually had a cooldown now. That's because of the ability that it used. So now I can't use it anymore, unfortunately. So you need to be aware when you're actually doing that. Okay, so let's jump down here and have a look at the other 3 abilities. Alrighty, so here we have 3 abilities. Let's charge this up and let go. Unfortunately, I let go, so it stopped. Now, this is what happens if you don't let go. So let's charge up. So if you keep holding it, you can actually control the laser. And if you hold for long enough, this is what happens at the end of the laser. Boom. So it actually does a lot of AoE damage. So generally what's going to happen is when you use that, you're kind of stuck because you can't move, and the enemy's going to walk forward. So it's really good because as the enemies walk forward, you let it go, and it explodes right in their face. Honestly, that's probably the most fun part of the cannon on the Ranger class for me, which is why I can't stop using the cannon, even though it's probably not as effective as the gun. Okay, so next up, continuous fire. Now, as you saw there, if you click it, it'll just shoot like this. Boom. If you hold it, it'll use more PP. Let me hold it. And now I'm moving while using it. It actually gives you the ability to move, and I think it takes more PP when you use it. So your maneuverability is still okay on the cannon, but on the bosses, I definitely would use the gunner because you have the invulnerability. Okay, so we've now had a look at all of the cannon's abilities. As you can see, the cannon's very flashy and quite honestly very fun with the lasers and the multiple barrages. But sadly, I just don't think it is as effective on bosses, which is the main thing you're going to want to be doing damage on. pso2 New Genesis. This is the ultimate for this class. So even the ultimate is kind of like AoE centric. So if you're going to use a cannon, do it when you're farming PC bursts and leveling. But when you're going to do bosses like emergencies, you're going to want to make sure that you focus on the rifle. Not only is the rifle probably more damage for yourself, but it also boosts damage for your entire team. So at the end of the day, the rifle is simply going to do more damage than the cannon, unfortunately, at the end of today. So that's it for the Rangers video. Hopefully you liked the Ranger. Some people, I realize, were commenting that they don't like the gunner very much because they don't like the two guns, and they're more of a fan of a rifle. So if that's you, I definitely suggest that you check out this class because it really is a lot of fun to play. And whenever you're getting a little bit bored of the rifle, change it over to the cannon and just honestly go nuts. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.